All right, let's do it. Joining me now, Congressman Michael Cloud. Welcome to the Alec Show.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Well, pleasure to have you here. Let's just start it like this. Now we're faced with another choice here to fund the government or shut it down. The SAVE Act, which we had the feeling, whether it went through or not, was never going to be attached to this bill. So what say you? What's going to happen here? Are we going to fund the government some more or shut it down?
Well, I'm never a fan of CRs. They continue, especially at this time of the year, continue to lead toward the massive Christmas omnibus bill. Had real concerns about the direction we were heading, really concerned that the CR didn't pass with the SAVE Act on it. I think that would have been the right position, not only because the SAVE Act was on it, but because it would have put it into the next term where a potential Trump administration could deal with all the policies and spending that's involved in it. As we head toward December, the more likely chance it is that we'll have, again, this Christmas tree massive omnibus bill that not only will have massive spending, it'll thousands of pages that nobody gets to read, but could potentially have a number of policy initiatives deep embedded in those pages of legislative text that could tie the hands of a Trump administration who needs to come in and make some massive changes to what's going on here in the federal government.
And this is what's continued to cause this incredible inflation that's just been crippling the American people here. And we're kind of just sick and tired of seeing it and the can continuing to get kicked down the road with more and more of this spending. And the SAVE Act, too, it's like we just say like we're 40 something days away from the election. I just had your colleague, Congressman Gates, on here. I was just talking about this same thing. And it's like there's been little to nothing done to secure the election from what we saw in 2020. Now, just 40 days out, we're trying to get through this SAVE Act, which we should be on the books already, that you got to show ID to vote. I mean, that's a common sense thing, it seems like, yet we couldn't get that part of it done. What kind of faith do you have in the integrity of elections, given what we've done since 2020?
Well, like you said, this isn't a partisan issue anywhere but Congress. 85% of the country says this is common sense. My wife's a naturalized citizen. Of course, only citizens should be voting in our federal elections. And so, yeah, as we continue to head down this path, we've got to do everything we can. A lot of states have done a lot of good work over the last couple of years to put us in a better place. There's something for us to do as citizens, certainly being involved. I used to be a county chair and used to have to help man those election judges and those kind of things. So there's a lot of things for citizens to do to reach out to your local party to participate. But yeah, there's still a lot of work to be done. And certainly our eyes are on certain states like Pennsylvania. We had, we all saw what happened in the last different election. People doing everything they can to not have any sort of accountability or to have eyes on the process. And so there's a lot of concerns about what kind of tricks of the trade may be pulled as we head into November.
Yeah, it seems like the usual suspects, again, as we're looking here at the swing states, the most important states. That's where all the eyes are going to be on to see if we can make sure that we have people there, hopefully poll watchers that aren't being paid off by the wrong people, and we can get somebody there to keep an eye on things. But it's just the feel of this atmosphere feels kind of similar to how we felt right after 2020. We were like, wait a minute, all of a sudden in the middle of the night, the votes changed, the ballots changed. Everyone felt there was something off, and we just have that feeling right now that we hope we don't see a repeat of that, because it feels like right now, everywhere you go, the momentum is with President Trump. The American people are sick and tired of what they've had. Even Tim Walz said, hey, we can't have 4 more years of this. So we and honestly, we can't. I'm a regular working guy, railroad mechanic, 4 kids. We cannot do this for another 4 years, Congressman.
No, certainly not. I've obviously toured my district and stay in touch with people going on. I've talked to a number of people who, small business owners who just 4 years ago were looking to invest. They were looking to expand, to build new buildings, to hire new people. And just a few years later, those plans are off the table, and they're digging into personal savings to try to make payroll every month. And so this is the thing that we've seen. And the thing that I keep saying is the American people aren't getting their economic news from a White House press briefing. They're going to the grocery store and they're seeing prices higher than they have been. They see that their budget doesn't go as far as it used to, and they see that their savings, when we have massive inflation, that's a tax on people's savings. The people doing it right are the ones most punished. And so, we've got to turn course. This massive government spending where we keep just spending out the money, stealing, frankly, from the next generation. Every argument that gets pushed up here, everybody's like, what about the children? Well, what about the children? What about the next generation that we're putting this massive burden of inflation? They're going to be the ones that have to pay the price unless we make a sharp change in how we're doing things up here.
It has to be. It has to be take the ball and start going on offense. And if it takes shutting the government down to get it done, in my opinion, it's got to happen. We can't just keep spending so much money that we're spending out of control. But let me switch gears here to the border, because this is another. This is obviously the economy and the border are the two top things on people's minds, most of them across the country. But the open border, we've had this. We've seen them tell us that they suppressed information about migrants with ties to terror at the border, and now we just seen this report that 4 RPGs and 8 IEDs, explosive devices, were found along the border, right just across from Arizona in Mexico. Border Patrol agents are being warned that there's a drastic escalation in weaponry being used on the south side of the border, which, if that's what they found, God only knows what's made it already across. But this is another catastrophe.
Oh yeah, it is. And we've got to stop looking at these cartels as, 1980s street gangs. They're not. They're highly sophisticated. They're militarized. They are we are basically the last end, a taxpayer funded human trafficking organization, and we're the last mile paying for that, unfortunately. And this administration has continued to turn a blind eye to that. And then the terrorist threat that's coming across the border, we've known that terrorists are seeking across the border, and those are the ones we know about. What the real concern is the gotaways, the ones we don't know about. And you don't get out of China without China wanting you to get out of China. And so when you see a number of single-aged, military-aged adults from China and other countries like that don't have our best interest in mind streaming across our border, it should raise a red flag. The number one job of Homeland Security is to protect the homeland, but they've stopped protecting and have been just prioritizing processing. And so that's really all that's been going on. It's been devastating to the morale of the people many of them veterans who said, hey, following my service in the military, I'm now going to serve as a Border Patrol agent and do what I can to protect the country. And it's just devastating to our communities that are paying the burden for this. Now we see it happening all over the country. And this administration not only has turned a blind eye to it, they've done everything they can to aid and abet the cartels in this nefarious action.
And it's really an act of war, Congressman, from China and from these cartels is what it is. I mean, you have thousands of people dying from the fentanyl, and now you have all these, and especially too, I wanted to get to this because the DOJ released this letter from the shooter, Ryan Ralph, the second attempt on President Donald Trump, where he, in the letter, is offering a $150,000 bounty for anyone who wants to finish the job. Why in the world would they make that public? This is just an open cry for somebody else to take a shot, whether the $150,000 payoff is going to be there or not. I mean, why would you publish this out? We didn't get the manifesto from the trans shooter. They wanted to protect that because they were afraid of what it would do. Yet this, they put public.
That's really concerning, too, when you see the duplicity that's happening here, when you see how different issues are treated differently. And certainly, at a very minimum, when you're pointing to what's happened in the 2 assassination attempts, at a very minimum, there seems to be a careless disregard toward protecting President Trump. And the more, it's been one of those things where the more we ask questions, the worse it sounds because of the responses we're getting back from the people who are supposed to be investigating this and the people who are supposed to be authorities on this subject. It's mind-boggling to most Americans, the fact that this continues to be allowed, and we're doing everything we can to push back on it, but we've got to see some action from the DOJ.
It just seems like, Congressman, you have, on one hand, you have 2 assassination attempts on Trump. Meanwhile, you have illegals with ties to terror organizations. They're suppressing that information coming into the country. Congressman Gates was talking about 5 assassin teams that were on the ready going, targeting Trump. It just seems like, how in the world could this happen in America here? And they finally give Trump the full package of the Secret Service after 2 assassination attempts. He doesn't get it prior to the first one or after the second or after the first one. He gets it only after the second attempt. It's almost as if they're doing everything they can to kind of grease the wheel of what they're trying to do to him.
Well, and it seemed like they were following the manual and doing the basic minimum requirements of protecting President Trump, even though they knew he had an elevated threat against him. State actors actually sending people into our country to try to take him out. That should put him as a high-profile protectee, and certainly it's nice to see that happening today, but you got to wonder why that's taken so long. And you can only think that it's because there is not the concern that the rest of us have for President Trump when it comes to protecting him.
It is. And so let me get it to where you are in Texas here. We've only got 40 something days here until the election goes. What's the sentiment there? Are the people in Texas? I mean, I would imagine you talked about the economy, the border. Is that the top
Yeah,
of mind?
sure.
What's on the top of mind of the voters there in Texas?
Well, if you asked me about a year ago, people would say like, what's going on in Texas? Say, top three issues in Texas, of course, are border, border, border. But I got to tell you, as the economy's gotten worse, the border's still just as important. But the economy, I mean, people are trying to make ends meet just as well, and have our economy working. Energy is so key, not only in how that ties into the economic security of our nation, but what it means geopolitically, how it's tied to our monetary system, all these different things. And the Biden-Harris administration has everything but, I mean, it's all backwards policy when it comes to energy. But, we touched on it at the beginning, but as I travel around, one of the things people are very concerned headed into November is that we're going to have secure elections. And so there's, when you see a government that is just well extended beyond its purpose, one of the biggest things we have to do as we look to a next term is we've got to rein in the administrative state, because all these agencies have outgrown their authority. They are bloated, and they're not doing a very good job at meeting their goals. And so that's one of the things certainly that we're going to have to be looking at, what we can do to rein in these, to right size this. Just during COVID, 2 years of COVID, our federal government grew about 30%. And it's not like before that, Americans were sitting around thinking we have a lean, mean fighting machine of a federal government, So there's a lot of work to be done. I think about Elon Musk. He walked in Twitter, fired 75% of the people, and had a better product for it. And so there's a lot of things we can do to make sure the American people are getting the best value, and that we're getting rid of a lot of the nefarious action that's happening in our federal government.
And it's a scary thought, Congressman, that we're this close to having Kamala Harris be the commander in chief. I mean, it's the more she talks, the dumber I feel. And it's like, I cannot believe that we're that close. And I can't imagine, just from the word on the street here I'm in New Jersey, in the communist state of New Jersey here. And we constantly see Trump flags everywhere, Trump supporters, no matter where you go. Yet this state always seems to go blue because of certain particular spots in Jersey that seem to be a little bit more corrupt than others. But I mean, it seems like across the country, all 50 states could be in play, because we're all going to the grocery store. We're all going to the gas station. So I think every state should be in play here. I haven't seen a single Kamala Harris flag, banner, bumper sticker, yet they tell you on the news that she's the most popular president, even despite nobody voted for this woman.
Yeah, you got to wonder how that happens. We all remember the basement tour of the Biden administration, and the thing the American people got to realize is you're running against an apparatus, so you swap out the figurehead. This one's got maybe a little more spunk and can find her way off a stage, but it's the same policy set, and it's the same effects that are going to be on the American people. And anything, it's a notch up toward Marxism, communism, leftism, that is completely contrary to the founding of our country. It's completely contrary to what is the principles that have undergirded the American miracle, that have really taken us in just a few hundred, in the scope of history, just a few years from the birth of our country to the premier influence in the world, and an overall net positive for not only people here at home, but for the world, and us being that shining city on a hill for those principles of liberty and human flourishing.
It's worth fighting for. There's no question about it. And I feel everyone kind of has that same feeling right now, that if we don't get it in November, we're never going to get another chance at it. And I know you guys over at the Oversight, you guys are investigating right now what's going on with Act Blue. What can you tell me about that investigation? What's going on with them?
Well, we're still into the investigation, but there's a whole lot of concern, and certainly this is one of those cases where there was a lot of opportunity for fraud left in the process of how they were collecting donations. There's first of all, they didn't require the security code on their credit card payments, and so they're taking massive amounts of credit card payments and small dollar figures that are hard to track. They were also, the potential of the millionaire donors, the big, huge donors buying up a number of gift cards and somehow farming those out to people and then donating along those lines, to where you have somebody basically donating in somebody else's name. These are all the things that we're getting whistleblower reports that have the potential of having been happening over the course of time. And so you have a couple, House admin is looking into this, House Oversight Committee is looking in at different avenues of it. And this week we'll have a bill on the floor, at least to begin to secure the security code issue. But there's a lot more work to be done on investigating and making sure that
You know
bad
what?
stuff's not happening there.
Congressman, the feeling here, I mean, especially for myself, I could speak for, it's just that it seems like no matter what is uncovered, even if they find out that they're doing this fraudulent
Oh,
stuff,
yeah,
even if they
right.
find out, it feels like the people on the other side feel like it's justified. Even if they're doing it illegally, it's justified because Trump is that bad. The media has portrayed him as that bad. Even the assassination attempts, you have people that feel like, oh, well, too bad they missed them. I mean, you have people
Oh, yeah,
genuinely
yeah,
hoping they try
right.
again because the media has built them into a Hitler. And if you could go back in time and take out Hitler, why wouldn't anybody want to do that? So that's the problem. Even if you uncovered his stuff, it's like they're going to say, well, so what? Whatever it takes to get him out of there.
Well, and then they turn around and talk about civility and unity, and we need all,
Yeah.
it's the duplicity. But I think the American people are seeing through this now. They're not buying the stick anymore, and I think we'll see the difference of that come November. But this again is one of those issues to where constantly, whether it was election security or whether it was in the censorship, to where it's just once the corruption's unveiled, it's like, oops, oh, I'm sorry, but the damage has already been done. And this, what you don't see on the front end, and even with the Secret Service, it's where's the gumption on the front end to really do the due diligence to do this right, and we don't see that coming out of the left. We just see a bunch of excuses.
Yeah, it's wild, the double standard. And the last thing I just want to get your take, just because it just happened here, Zelensky comes into America. He's in the swing state of Pennsylvania. He's signing. You got Josh Shapiro signing missiles for him, and it's like it just seems like he's there and he's campaigning in a sense against Donald Trump. Whereas back in the day, Donald Trump called Zelensky to ask him about Joe Biden. They impeached him for it. Here comes Zelensky now. He's basically campaigning with Biden for Harris, and it's like no one cares about this whatsoever. So it's like see the double standard is kind of odd. What's your take on that?
Well, yeah, again, coming from Texas, I can tell you, and now people understand this all over. Why are we working to protect someone else's borders when we're not protecting our own? And it's hard to get past that point when I'm talking to the American people back home. Our first priority should be to protect our own borders. We shouldn't be meddling in something over there. And certainly the amount of money we're sending over there that's been unaccountable. We've actually been paying to support their political apparatus as well, and paying for the pension programs of their politicians. So this goes beyond what they would say warheads on foreheads against a threat. This is gotten into a whole lot of stuff that the American people just, when they know how their money's being spent, don't really support it. They want us to protect their homeland.
It's crazy. Congressman, I know I'm up against the clock. Send me away here. Put your crystal ball. Look into the crystal ball there. Are we going to have a government shutdown or the continuing resolution goes through? What do you see?
Well, if I had to guess, DC is going to be DC, and we're kick the can down the road. Unfortunately, I find ourselves in the same spot every September 30th. Congress acts completely surprised that September 30th didn't know it was coming somehow, and we have to kick the can down the road. Unfortunately, that's probably what's gonna happen. We need to get back to passing the appropriate bills that have the due diligence, that have the work put into them, and that give the American people the ROI on their investment.
Well said. All right, Congressman Michael McLeod, honor to have you on. Love to have you on again back down the line. Thanks for giving me a few minutes of your time here on the Alec Lee Show.
Sure thing. God bless y'all.